Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into React.
Yeah, focusing on how to level up those skills.
Exactly. We've got this source, an article from CodeMotion magazine by Lucilla Tomasi. It's called 10 React Expert Tips That Will Change Your Life. Quite the title.
Yeah, sets a high bar.
So our mission today is basically to unpack these tips. What are the real nuggets of wisdom here for becoming, a React expert? We'll use this article as our guide.
Sounds good. Practical advice is always useful, especially in React where things move so fast. It's not just what the tips are, but why they matter according to the source, right?
Spot on. Let's get into it. The article kicks off right at the very foundation.
It does. Tip number 1, learn JavaScript. Don't skip the basics. Calls it a crucial truth.
Which, sounds simple, but I guess lots of people are tempted to just jump straight into React itself.
Oh, absolutely. And the article really argues against that. It's like React is JavaScript. If you don't have those fundamentals down, functions, objects, async await, all that stuff, it's going to be confused. The source basically says skipping this step is why many newer developers struggle. It's non-negotiable.
Okay, solid ground first. Makes sense. So once you've got that JavaScript base, where does the article say to go next for React itself?
Straight to the source, actually. Read the React documentation.
The official docs.
Yep. The article highlights them as essential. They're free, up-to-date, well-organized.
So maybe hold off on that expensive course initially.
The article suggests it's a totally valid alternative. It even says, read it even if not everything clicks right away.
Bye.
The idea is stick with it, and eventually it'll make sense. It's the definitive guide.
That's a good point. The best resource might just be the free official one. Okay, so JS basics, check. Reading the docs, check. What's the next step to make it stick?
This is where it gets active. Build real projects right away.
Right, move from reading to actually doing.
Exactly. The source is pretty firm on this. Practice is how you truly learn. Otherwise, it's just superficial knowledge.
Like knowing the theory, but never actually coding anything substantial.
Precisely. Building something real, something with a purpose, forces you to hit roadblocks, figure things out, and really develop that problem-solving skill. You don't get that from just following tutorials.
Okay, foundation. Learn the tool, then apply it. Got it. Now, as projects get bigger, things like code structure and managing data become, tricky.
And the article dives right into that, starting with break down components and keep them simple, a core best practice.
It mentions avoiding God components. I think we've all seen those, or maybe even written one.
Yeah. The source warns strongly against them, these huge components trying to do everything.
What problems do they cause, according to the article?
Well, they make the application flow hard to follow, logic gets tangled, and version control becomes a nightmare if multiple people are working on it.
Oof. Yeah.
The contrast is small, focused components, much easier to understand, test, maintain, and for teams to work on together.
So simplicity at the component level is key for sanity. And related to that is managing the data, the state.
Which brings us to state management. Use React wisely. And the article gives some nuanced advice here.
Meaning, don't just immediately install Redux or useState.
Pretty much. It says state management is vital for complex apps to avoid chaos, but you need a strategy. Don't just default to external libraries.
So what should you do first?
Leverage React's own tools first. Use state for simple local stuff. Use Reducer for more complex logic within a component. And use context for sharing things down the tree without prop drilling hell. The advice is only bring in the bigger libraries like Redux when absolutely necessary. Master the built-ins before adding more complexity.
That's a really important point. Know your tools before grabbing new ones.
Okay, structure and state.
Yeah.
What about just making the app perform well and ensuring code quality?
Next up is optimize the bundle and use lazy loading. Performance is critical, right?
Absolutely. Users hate waiting.
Yeah.
And the bundle is all the JavaScript shipped to the browser. Exactly. And the source warns it can balloon if you're not careful, slowing everything down. Lazy loading is presented as the key technique here.
How does that work, basically?
The idea is simple. Don't load everything at once. Just load the code needed for the initial view and then load other parts, like for different routes or components, only when the user actually needs them.
So it speeds up that initial page load.
Right. Improves perceived performance, reduces that initial hit.
Makes sense. Okay, performance covered. Then there's a strong push for code quality with adopt TypeScript ASAP.
Yeah, the article frames this as more than just a nice to have. It calls it a true code quality improvement.
Why so strongly recommended?
Well, the benefits listed are pretty compelling. Static types catch tons of errors while you're coding before they get to the browser. Saves huge amounts of debugging time, boosts productivity.
Okay.
Plus, it gives you more precise control over your code and makes refactoring, changing existing code much safer, less likely to break things unexpectedly.
So it's presented as a real step up in robustness and maintainability. Interesting. Now, speaking of maintainability, here's one that feels a bit different. Avoid over-abstraction. Simplicity is key.
Yeah, it kind of pushes against the DRY principle. Don't repeat yourself a little, doesn't it?
It seems like it. What's the reasoning?
The source suggests being cautious about creating reusable things too early. Developers might abstract something because they think they'll need it again later.
Then they never do.
Exactly. Or the way they need it later is slightly different and the abstraction doesn't quite fit. So the advice is solve the immediate problem simply first.
Okay.
Then, if you find yourself genuinely repeating the same pattern later, that's the time to refactor and make it reusable. Avoids unnecessary complexity up front.
Solve today's problem today. Abstract tomorrow if needed.
I like that.
And sticking with code quality, especially for teams. Keep the code readable and intuitive.
Seems obvious, maybe, but the source is blunt. Useless if it's not readable. It doesn't matter if it works perfectly if nobody can understand how it works.
So practical tips for that.
Use clear names for variables, functions. Keep the logic straightforward. Comment when things are complex, but don't over-comment obvious stuff.
And there's that line about,
Yeah, the kicker. People, including your future self, should be able to easily understand what the code does. That future self part always gets me. You're writing for yourself in 6 months, too.
so true.
Yeah.
Right for humans, including future you. Okay, last tip. This one often feels like a chore. Refactor continuously.
But the article frames it differently. Not as a chore, but as an integral part of the code's life cycle.
Like ongoing maintenance.
Exactly. The advice is to regularly take time to tidy up. If a component has gotten too big or some logic is hard to follow, clean it up.
And if you don't.
Well, the source says the code just gets harder and harder to manage. Development slows down, frustration goes up, bugs creep in more easily because making changes is risky.
So little and often is better than waiting for a huge mess.
Much better. It's preventative maintenance for your code base.
That's a great way to think about it. Okay, so wrapping all these 10 tips together, it paints a picture of expertise that's about more than just churning out features, isn't it?
Definitely. The source concludes it's an ongoing journey, not a race. And following these kinds of practices is doing it the right way.
Leading to code that's not just working, but as the article says, optimized, scalable, and easy to maintain. Using React well to build extraordinary applications.
Yeah, and what really strikes me is the emphasis on discipline and thinking long term, mastering fundamentals, prioritizing clarity, being thoughtful about tools, making refactoring a habit. It all points towards craftsmanship.
It does.
Which leaves a final thought, maybe, for you listening. If building these extraordinary applications hinges so much on code quality, maintainability, and scalability, not just flashy features, how might that shift your priorities when you sit down to code next? What does that quality focus mean in practice for you?
Something to really think about. We hope this deep dive into Lucilla Tomasi's article gave you some valuable insights for your React development. Thanks for tuning in.